Oh, dude, we are in about 2 months. We're going to be at a year from our first published recording.
It's pretty great. I don't think I've ever done anything consistently for a year besides work.
Be married.
Yeah, marriage is work.
There you go.
No, but I
You're
don't
not wrong.
know.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, no, it's like isn't that a saying? Isn't that a
Yeah.
quote?
Yep. And I hate work.
Three, two, one. Backlog.
Welcome back to 321 Backlog, the podcast where we sit down and talk about games that we've played from our backlog. I should probably streamline that and make it the same at some point.
Nah, dude, I like it being all over the place.
Nah, perfect.
Perfect.
My name is Alec, and I'm joined by
Hi, hello,
James.
caffeinated James.
Caffeinated James. That's what we want. We decided let's not wait till the end of the day. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I feel. You know what, man? I feel like generally by the end of the day, I'm kind of stupid anyway. So it's good. I can go all day, buddy.
All day, and that's what we're gonna do.
All.
No, so we are
Jesus Christ.
breaking into our regularly scheduled releases where we actually announce what we plan on playing and what we have played and all that good stuff to talk about a game that has just kind of been sweeping through the nation.
Looming, dude. It's been
We are going to talk about Palworld today.
yeah.
And my goodness, what a game.
Yeah.
So we might not be as structured as usual, but we definitely wanted to just talk about what we played so far and maybe talk about
Why we don't like it.
why we do or why we don't like it. So because it's very divisive, I feel like from the stuff I've seen online. So
yes, this might actually be the newest game we've ever done. I think we've done some like within a couple months, and we've said this a few times before, but I think this is officially the newest game, like closest to release that we've ever discussed something.
definitely, it's at time of recording, it has been out for
Less than a month.
by one day.
Yeah. Well, Jesus Christ, dude.
It has been out for just under a month by the time we've recorded this, but
Tomorrow it'll be his
man.
1 month anniversary.
That's right. So I definitely, when I first saw this, it was like, okay, they're taking like this was what they had in their board meeting. Is like, okay, what if we take like Ark Survival and Fortnite and what were some of the other ones? What are some Breath of the Wild and Raft, and then also throw Pokemon in the mix.
Yeah.
And then that's your game. Here you go.
Yep.
My
it does
goodness.
have a very Breath of the Wild feel. It just feels like it ripped off every Nintendo franchise that you can think of.
And see that's something else. We're, and again, not structured by any means, but I had never heard of Pocket Pair before. So I was like, oh, let me go see what else they made. And I feel like this is kind of their formula. Like they're gonna look at already established games and see if they can pick some of the things out of those games that people really like and start mashing them together.
Yeah.
And I hopefully that's not too big of an assumption or a way of describing it, but they've done an AI art. It's called Art Imposter, which has like an Among Us kind of feel. They've done Craftopia, which has more so than Palworld a Breath of the Wild aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like heavily. And then they have another one that they've done called Over Dungeon, which looks like Hearthstone, like a
hard type game.
A card game.
Yeah,
that they've mixed with other aspects, but again, aesthetically, it looks a lot like Hearthstone. So they're definitely
wow. It looks. You could have showed me a picture of Over Dungeon and been like, "Yeah, did you see the new Hearthstone expansion?" And I would have been like, "Nah, it looks It looks just like Over Dungeon.
Yeah, so they're definitely like skirting that line
Yeah,
of like similar to but legally distinct from XYZ.
yeah.
And I mean it's working for them. One thing I haven't checked, and I'm going to check right now as we record, are these other things still in early access? Or have yeah. So
Yeah. So I have
Craftopia
a yeah.
2020, end of 2020, it's still in early access.
So I have a theory kind of about these games. They're done.
Oh yeah,
They're
for
done.
sure. They're not going to do anything.
They've sold their copies of the game and that's enough of it. And they might come out. And if they do, it's not really going to be very big.
Yeah.
But the hype of the game is going to die faster than the game can come out. And I think that's just the whole structure of it. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. As reported by TheVerge.com, Palworld at the time of whatever they wrote this, which was the end of January, they had sold 12 million copies on Steam.
Insane.
I mean, 12 million times 30. I'd say what times 25 for anybody that had sales and stuff or discount codes. Like they made a pretty penny off of this.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't think I would love for them to expand on it a little bit. I think it's a really, really good early access first draft. Like not even a first draft, like definitely an early access game for sure. I would love for them to continue, but I don't think they're going to.
I don't think they will. I really don't. I feel like for the most part, the game kills itself anyway, as all crafting games, in my experience, do.
Yeah.
You get to a point where everything's automated, and then you haven't beaten the game because there's not really an end in sight, but there isn't anything left to do, and the game becomes self-playing, and there's no point.
Right.
There's nothing to gate you and slow you down the way Animal Crossing.
Mhm.
There's only so much you can do in a day, and then you have to wait 24 hours or whatever to be able to do the next set of things. And that's a very craft heavy type of game too. They
Right.
gate it so that way you can't just progress through the whole game in 2 weeks and put out everything.
I think an easy fix for like the longevity of the game and to get people to come back in, to put that barrier to not making your base or your playthrough become fully automated would just be adding a PvP aspect. You're going through and building yourself a
Yeah.
base and these reinforcements and these defenses for like some in-world things that will come through, but they end up being more of a joke over time. I definitely think if they add some PvP in there, that I don't think this would end near as soon as I think it's going to.
Yeah, it maybe it wouldn't, but I also could see it just it's such the way the AI and stuff is in the game. I feel like it's just so unpredictable that it wouldn't be difficult to just find a way to cheese the AI and win it.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this game kind of feels like it was created by an AI to me in so many ways.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel like I'm
nothing
bashing the
too-
shit out of it. I've had fun. Like I want to keep playing it, but yeah, it has such a like non-human touch feel to it. It's
Mhm.
weird.
It's very strange. I really this is a game in thinking about Pokemon, because I think that's the biggest comparison a
What?
lot of people have
What?
is to Pokemon, right? It's such a big mechanic of both of these games. I feel like that's why it's getting so much attention, because Pokemon is so beloved by so many age groups and gamers
Right.
across the globe. I really hope it doesn't just fizzle out. I would love for them to either continue it and give us more that Nintendo won't give us for these types of games. Or I would love for Nintendo to get, out of their ass and maybe give
That's
us
what I want.
and by us I mean their original player base. Give us something to show that we've grown up a little bit. Because you and I
Yeah.
played the what was the 1996
Pokemon Blue.
to 8, the blue and red, right?
Yeah.
So that
Game
first
Boy.
set of games here in America, that was us. I spent countless hours rerunning through that cartridge.
Yeah.
That I've tried to keep up with it, but by the time we got into, I think it was like the gemstone one. So like the early rubies and stuff, I kind of started growing out of it a little bit.
I
So
just lost access to those games. I
yeah,
mean, I still enjoy them, but there's a definite time period where I just lost access
yeah,
to playing handheld games because I didn't have handheld consoles,
mhm,
you know.
for
Even though
sure. For
there's one there and there that would play every
sure.
one, but
But
that's grown up shit.
when Arceus came out, Arceus has some problems. But
Yeah.
it was such like I was so excited. I was like, "Oh, this is like the new generation moving forward. This is what we're gonna see now, away from that like that old Pokemon formula of go to the town that you got the little sprites and mini version things. We're gonna like see full-fledged animations of all of these characters, Pokemon, and these like fighting moves and stuff. This is what we're gonna see from now on." And it was
Oh,
like
whoops.
a quick flash in the pan, and now we're back to the original formula of having it on a handheld and being that same slightly top down, maybe isometric tangent play style.
So
And
yeah,
Arceus is gone.
the newest Pokemon game, Scarlet Violet,
Mhm.
is that what you're referring to? They
Those
were
I have
kind
not
of
looked at yet. Scarlet.
okay. So that kind of had it was deceptive. Like you look at it and you're like you think it's gonna play the way Arceus did with just new stuff and everything, but it was very much a return to traditional, just with the almost like a skin that made it look new. It still was very turn
Right.
based, but it had the open world thing. You could see the Pokemon out in the wild,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
but
I'm
that game was a
looking at it
dumpster
now.
fire on release.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess they're slowly moving towards it, but I feel like Arceus was like where, for me, that's where I want to go.
Yeah,
That's where I've been wanting to
yeah.
go for a while.
So to kind of get back on topic,
Hey, we're fast and loose. We decided to record
uh,
this moments ago. It's okay.
yeah, I just got done. Yeah, folding laundry. But so I do. What I hope comes of this is that I would like to see Game Freak, the makers of Pokemon, kind of step it up a lot. I don't care about lawsuits or whatever. I really don't. I know a lot of the stuff is similar, but it's not a one-to-one copy. It's similar.
Right.
But
Right.
this just goes to show that there is a lot more that can be done with monster training and monster catching games
Mhm.
than what Game Freak is letting us do.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd like to see.
100%. 100%. All right. So back to Palworld. There is
Back
more
to
than
Pokemon.
back to Pokemon. There's more than just the capturing monsters and stuff. They do have crafting,
Yeah.
which I do. I like crafting in a lot of these games, but I think what you alluded to earlier is eventually, because of how they structured it with your pals being able to assist, it all becomes automated. So you don't really have to do anything anymore once you get to a certain point.
Yeah. And
And
then there's no progression and then the game
yeah,
feels
so
done.
taking the crafting at face value for the character doing it, I think it's all right. I mean, it's similar to a lot of other games that do crafting, like Ark and some of those other ones that are like survival based crafting games. But I feel like the addition of letting your pals jump in there, while cool at first, definitely once they completely take over, it's like, well, what am I doing here? And then you
Yeah.
just keep going out to do Pokemon stuff, and I just feel like there's a weird disconnect there.
Yeah, because you're not actively playing anymore. You don't have so I'm thinking so we put a lot of time into another game that is similar, Raft.
Yes,
And it was
yes,
so much fun when everybody was playing it, but then at some point you don't have to think about anything
mhm,
anymore because you're all you need to do is and this game has even more automation in it. But
yeah,
in Raft specifically, you don't like when you start out like you have to think about food and water. Like it's
yeah,
true survival and then at some point and I guess that's how it is, but you know, in real life too. But at some point you don't have to think about that because you're just acquiring it all automatically. Everything that you need, you just get.
right,
There's no incentive to leave the boat and go out and collect things because you have bees living on your boat to make honey and you've got
right.
trees that produce lumber and all that shit. And that's kind of the way this game goes too, I think. Maybe even a little more you know, aggressive.
that's kind of something I had thought about Raft when we were playing it, is like I wanted a little bit more, you
Yeah.
know, and
Imagine if there was PvP, player versus player
player
combat.
versus player, or just another activity to do. They had a story in it, which was okay. It wasn't
Yeah.
the main thing, but I think if they expanded that out a little bit, or just give you more activities, more things, if they could combine some of the mechanics from Raft and like Sea of Thieves, I think
Yeah.
that'd be kind of cool. Maybe getting to where you have more piratey kind of things that are in your wheelhouse. Maybe Pocket Pair should get on that next. Just mash
They
those
should.
together,
They
and then
absolutely should introduce PvP.
yeah, I was seeing if Raft was still early access, because I think we got it when it was early access, but it looks like it's full on now.
It was early access when we got it, and I think it came out as a full game while we were still playing it.
Okay, I put
Yeah.
122 hours into that game. It's
You
crazy. I
love
played a
a
lot.
crafting type of game, I can tell. Like you
Yeah.
really do enjoy getting things set up to be automated, and that's in real life as well.
Yeah, as my fleet of 3D printers is behind me.
Yeah.
So
Which
yeah,
essentially, can you print a PAL back there?
I
Ooh,
found a multicolor print of the Palworld logo.
yeah.
Just a black background with white lettering, and I'm it's on my list of things. But yeah, anyhow. So yeah, crafting, I think I'm gonna make this exact comment on every aspect of all the parts that Pal World has, where it's a good start, but then as you progress that particular aspect of the game, like crafting, it just kind of fizzles out, and it loses some of its luster the more you're able to do.
Right.
Right? So catching the
Yeah.
pals is really cool at first, but then it slowly becomes less fun and just not tedious, but just it loses some of that luster,
Yeah,
right?
well, you're not expanding anything with it, I guess. It's not like they're the fighting aspect of it is pretty minimal. I feel
Mhm.
like Pokemon, we have to compare it,
Oh,
obviously.
yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The reason that kind of stuff stays fun is because you're like there's stats for each one of them. So
Yes.
every
Yes.
you might have one that's the same level, but it has slightly better like hidden stats, so it is better. So
Mhm.
there's a reason to try and seek out. There's the shiny ones, which are in this game. They're called lucky, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's like that's another aspect that adds longevity and fun to Pokemon. And then just in general, I hate to say it, but the combat in a Pokemon game, even at the worst, like the turn base that's slow, is still better
Oh,
than the
yeah.
combat in this game.
Yes. Because I think something to me, if they were to expand this game and keep at it, the combat in this game is more like your Fortnite, where it's a shooter game, because you can end up crafting firearms and doing that. So I feel like they were trying to set themselves up to make it PvP, but then we're just not going to. So I definitely think when it comes to a combat system, they were eventually going to be leaning more in that direction than with the pals fighting. Now, I say
Yeah,
that also with the caveat of like there are items in the game in Palworld that you can like turn your pals into weapons, whether it be with guns, or there's like a flame one where you can turn it into a handheld flamethrower, that kind of thing. So there
right.
is combat with pals, but not what you would really expect of like, oh, I'm gonna set my fire guy down and he's gonna do all of his, different fire stuff, or we're not gonna see vine whips and bubble blast and all that kind of stuff. We're just gonna see a different colored energy blast, and that's kind of it.
Yeah,
Right? They all kind of act the same. I just think the attacks end up being a different color, but it seems like they were wanting, in how I'm interpreting, as they were wanting to lean more into the shooter aspect for late game.
yeah, which is cool. But what I feel like if they were gonna try and reinvent that in a way that was more enticing or exciting, you should make it so that you control the pals rather than a player.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then every pal would have a different move set or way of playing, The flying ones take flight. The ones on the ground, you have to run around and dodge stuff, and then you have ranged attacks or melee attacks depending on what it is. That would be cool. It'd be a lot more work
Think about
for
the
the devs,
the
but
combination of like different fights and things you could have. That seeing how Arceus progressed Pokemon from something kind of like breaking that mold. One thing I wanted to see that I've been wanting to see with Pokemon for a long, long time is controlling the Pokemon themselves.
yeah.
And I definitely think Palworld, since they were, putting twists on everything, they really could have done that very well. I feel like.
And it would have felt, I don't know, if would have felt maybe more original than having guns in the game, but
Yeah.
it's weird. It's clearly parallels Pokemon, but it's not the same. There's enough differences, I think, to set it apart.
Enough
but
to say it's not an exact copy, which it's not an exact copy. You can see inspirations on a lot of the stuff and all that. So I think they're just skirting the line for sure. So yeah, you end up having a lot of like you make guns and armor and all this. So there is a shooter aspect to this game, and past that, I think that's kind of it. I mean, we didn't get too far off the first island, so there are boss fights that are like their gym leader equivalent, I guess you could say. We only did one of them, but there are a ton more apparently.
I've done a lot of the boss pals with Jason. I've played a fair amount with our other friend Jason because he has a server, and that's shown me a little bit more of like what the end game can be like. He's still putting plenty of time into the game.
Yeah.
He is one of the 450,000 players that still play it. They lost over 75%, I think, of their player base already.
Before we hit record today, I was looking for a quote. I saw something come up on TikTok, so I didn't find this, but I wanted to reference it, and it was from the developer when they were asking about the player drop. And I think we've mentioned why I think it's dropping is there definitely is an end cap to what you can do. There is not there isn't anything fun to keep you engaged. They made their sales, from a business standpoint, they've done what they set out to do. But anyway, for a player, I don't think there's enough to keep you engaged for months and months and months. Definitely not years and years in its current state. But one of the quotes that somebody by the name of Bucky, which I believe is one of the developers, he said, quote, "This emerging Palworld has lost X% of its player base. Discourse is lazy, but it's probably also a good time to step in and reassure those of you capable of reading past a headline that it's fine to take breaks from games." So he was coming at it with like, I mean, kind of like a realistic take of like, we're not trying to make it so you play and play and play forever. Like he's trying to say like, you can play Palworld for a little bit, then you can go play something else. Like it's okay to switch between games.
Yeah, you can go from Palworld to Craftopia, which has been in development for almost 4 years from the same publisher. Take a break.
Yeah. He said, past that, you don't need to feel bad about that. Palworld, like many games before it, isn't in a position to pump out massive amounts of new content on a weekly basis. New content will come, and it's going to be awesome, but these things take a little bit of time. So, at face value, I mean, hopefully that's true, and they are going to do stuff past fixing bugs that are already present. That I think should be a baseline, but I would love to have them actually put the work in and maybe reinvest some of that 12 million sales they did.
20. Well, there was 22 point.
Yeah, 12 at the time of that article I'm citing, but I definitely think I'm hoping that they'll actually continue it. I don't know. I don't know what the numbers are on their other games, but I feel like they really struck a chord with Palworld. And
they did, yeah. It's everywhere. Everybody, even people that haven't played it, can't shut up about it.
Yeah.
So here's a quote from me. I got nothing. I don't know. It's just
I got nothing.
I got nothing.
Oh,
we gotta stop. We have to stop buying. People have to stop buying games that aren't done because this
I agree with that.
Any
I
game.
agree with that.
Yeah. Any game that isn't built, they've made enough money that they can just pull the rug out and never finish this game.
Yep.
And they have no incentive to finish the game, just like we have no incentive to keep playing it. There's your fucking quote.
You know, to that. So what I want to know is what are Steam, because we do a lot of our transactions and our purchasing through Steam. And I don't know of
Yeah.
any other platforms. I know it was on Palworld was on Game Pass. So this might be a difference there. But what are the parameters of marking your game as early access? So
It hasn't
are there any
officially released. I don't
rules? Do you
know.
have to have and I'm saying this without actually knowing. So bear with me here. But I would hope as a consumer that if you're going to put a game out and charge money for it, $30 wasn't the worst price point in the world. However, I am buying a game for $30 that isn't finished. I know it's not finished, but I'm buying it under the assumption that they're going to try to make
Finish
it
it.
better. So my hope is that when a publisher comes out that says, "Hey Steam, I'm going to put this game on that's not quite done yet, but maybe I need some financial help." Okay, that's fine. But they need to maybe put out or agree to, like, I don't know, a timeline, maybe an update schedule. Like, they need to say, "Hey, I'm going to be accepting money for this. Maybe I need to put um I don't know, stretch goals like on Kickstarter or something, like, oh, if we get to this amount, we can focus on this aspect, right? But just put something out there of like, hey, we're still working on it and this is what our plan is."
That complicates things a lot, though, because
It
that's a
could.
lot
It
for
could.
one company to enforce. You know that, like, the
Yeah,
Steam is
yeah.
basically iTunes for video games.
True,
That's a
true.
lot for them to enforce. And then it would also, there's so much, I think, like, if they don't meet those demands, then what? You're entitled immediately to a refund because of that, like, as a player. I do
Well,
think that Steam does a pretty good job refunding people if a game doesn't make it out of early access
I
for
think
whatever reason. I think
I
Steam
I
is
I
like one
wouldn't
of the
even go as
companies that
far as, like, saying they get
has people's
refunds, but
backs.
I want information. I want transparency. That's what I want.
Did Daisy ever come out? For
Um,
fuck's sake.
is that recent one? Daisy, though,
When
there's
did it
like,
come out? 2018 it finally released. That game, when I don't know when it was announced for like alpha, but that game was in, yeah, 6 years before it actually came out. It was in like early access. Nobody gives a fuck about that game anymore. And the thing is too, with the way everything moves now, we are going to see Palworld 2.0 made by another company, another crafting game that has, monsters in it that can help you. We will see another company make that game before Palworld comes out officially.
right. So I did look up the Steam rules, partner.steamgames.com. This is their document on early access. There are 7 rules that they need to follow.
Okay.
Okay. First, you must include Steam early access branding and information on the current state of any game, third-party sites where you're distributing Steam keys, early access. So basically, it needs to be marked as early access. Cool. Do not make specific promises about future events. So maybe because it's an early access, they don't want you to say, "Oh, hey, we're going to do this thing," but we might not. We don't know if we're actually going to be able to. So basically, I think how that's going is don't promise stuff you can't do. 3, early access titles need to be available to customers through Steam. That's fine. Don't overcharge Steam customers. So, yeah, in the case of Power, $30. I mean, they're clearly more expensive games. So, okay. Make sure you set expectations properly everywhere you talk about your game. Be transparent with your community is what they're saying here. And that is something I would love to see a little bit more there. Right. What are your tentative plans? Like, oh, we went early access January of 2024, but within 6 months we would like to have, X amount of updates. Not promising, just
Right.
updates. So like every month we're going to give you what we're doing, right? Just something. Don't launch early access without a playable game. That makes sense. And don't launch in early access if you're finished. So you got to have something in between. We haven't started yet and we're done. So somewhere in between those
That makes
where it's
sense.
actually playable.
That's fair.
So I get that. I don't know. Anywho, I haven't jumped back into Palworld since we got out of it a couple weeks ago. I know you and
Right.
Jason have been playing a bit and not calling me. So
And not what?
and not calling me.
Well, I mean, when I've jumped on, it's like very random, but
Yeah.
it's another thing too is that here's another
Hold on,
issue I
very very
have.
random. I'll send you pictures of like just like random times of the day I'm awake.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I want to say this is another thing that a point I guess to make about this game. It's that if I want to play with one of my other friends or you want to play with one of your other friends, you have to pick whose game you're playing in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're essentially starting from zero. So I've started from zero on your server, and then I started from zero on his server. So if you join his, you're starting from zero, and him and I both are already far ahead. And then
Yeah.
the same thing too. So that's another thing that makes these types of games very frustrating is it's not an MMO, massive multiplayer online. It's very much tailored to the one person game. So you can never really just jump in with all the bros and play and catch up and do that the way you could with, like Diablo and all that. So that kind of
Right.
sucks. And that was an issue with Raft as well. Everybody ended up having their own Raft. And we had to pick who were we playing with today and who are we gonna advance today. So
Right.
that'll forever be an issue in these types of games. And I feel like it somehow adds a little longevity to it, but
I think how they have it right now, it's because there's no real survival issue, honestly, in Power World.
right.
It's not a big issue right now. If they introduce PvP, it would become a massive issue. Or if your what are they called in Power World? Raids, like the random raids that happen, if though depending on how those scale to the player versus the
If they
base,
mattered.
that I think that could be an issue. But right now, there's no level restriction on if I come in as a level 1 and you're level 50 or whatever the max is, but you've made like all this crazy gear. I can use all of your gear. I just might not like hit as hard. So I don't believe there's
Yeah.
a so I think right now it's not as big of an issue in its current state.
Well, it won't
But I
matter
could
6
see
months from
how
now.
it can become an issue. And the starting over from server to server really sucks.
It does suck because you want to play on the account that you've worked
Yeah.
on. You don't
Like
want to
Baldur's Gate
play.
has the same problem. If
Yeah,
because
the
we were
Raft
wanting
had
to
the
play
same
those,
issue.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
But then I don't know how they could, because that's if you don't play it like that, it's very easy to break a game like this. Because if you play on your account and you have, your server, everything is crazy good,
right.
and someone just logs in and you just dump on them like a level 99 pally wally,
Right.
then, you've broken their game instantly. You
True.
give them a gun and unlimited ammo, they don't have to think about anything.
Yeah, it is hard to figure out how to do it without being game breaking, but I think being able, because what are some of those other like games for children like I don't know, Maple Story or something where you can like visit their islands or something? Isn't there what what's the one you were talking about earlier?
Animal Crossing?
And can't you like go visit other people's places?
Yeah, but there's not like a competitive aspect to it. It's you just
Right, but I
visit their
think
island and see it,
if I come visit you, because in Power World, does the player have levels or is it
Yeah,
just your base?
your player does.
We also okay. So I think if you transfer over just you, I think it will be okay. Like
Yeah, but then you show up naked. I don't
but yeah,
know.
show up. Yeah, show up naked. I'm like, oh, I'm or like I don't know, a basic set of like transfer clothing where it's just like clothing with like one armor and everything, right? I think there's ways to do it that I don't think would be a huge stretch, but to where you're not starting fully over, but also not bringing something across a server where it's like going to have a weird influx. I think there's a middle ground that
Yeah.
wouldn't be too terrible.
I wonder what the incentive of playing would be on somebody else's server other than just being with the boys then, because
Yeah, yeah.
you're not really advancing, but
You know,
I guess
like
that's still an
I'm
issue either
visiting. I
way.
want to see what you built. You can see what I built, but I don't want to have to like go through the animation of like waking up on a beach, then like walking all the way the fuck over to wherever your base is. I don't want to go through all that, right?
Okay,
So
I'm sorry. I invited you to my island.
but no, I think there would not be a relatively easy to program middle ground where
Right.
you could bring over just a person with just basic like clothing. I don't think that would be too terrible.
Well, but if they just so happen to start at level 1,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think
then done.
yeah,
Then that's it.
I think there are tons of ways to do it. I don't think any of them are really going to have, any real impact.
Yeah,
But
it doesn't matter anyway because no one's going to play this game 3 months from now. So you can do whatever you want.
by
Palworld.
the time this recording comes out, it will have dropped to like 90% of its player base, or 10% rather.
Yeah.
So
I wonder how many people still play Diablo
it's not me.
comparatively. I know a couple of our
that's
friends
a chunk
will
of change I would love to get back.
maybe one season, maybe when the so Diablo 3, a lot of people thought it was like a very good game later on and not so much
Right.
at launch. So maybe one day it'll feel fresh and everybody will dig in.
Maybe.
What are your thoughts on Palworld?
I think it's a really good first draft. That's all I really have for it. It's got a lot of promising aspects, but I think it needs more.
Yeah.
And I think if Pocket Pair just does, if they're just going to cash the checks and then move on to their next thing, whatever their next thing is, I'm never going to mess with it.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be no trust there. So
Yeah.
I really think they really struck gold with an idea, like with a new take on an idea.
Right.
And if they have any like essence of being gamers themselves, which I feel like a lot of developers have to some degree, maybe not all the time, but if they relate to gamers in any sense, they can't, without being total pieces of shit, just cast the check and run and not do
Right.
anything with it. I really think if they put some stuff, put a little bit more TLC into this could be a game that lasts years. Genuinely, I genuinely believe that. But in its current state, it's fun for a month and then you got to move on to something else without question.
Yeah. My thoughts are Palworld is just like masturbating. It's fun for a little while. It's more fun when you're doing it with the bros, but at some point you gotta do something else.
And with that, I think we're gonna sign out.
Get fucked.
Oh my god, I love it.